Hey, I'm Lauren from TastyPC.tv, and in this video I'm taking a quick look at the Avexir Raiden memory. Now the big thing with this memory is that there are plasma tubes mounted to the top of the DIMMs, which is as epic as it sounds, and the reason why I absolutely had to get some into review. Before we look at the memory itself though, I want to say the packaging it comes with is really nice. It makes you really feel like you're getting a premium product. But yeah, so in this video I'm going to be looking at the 16GB version of 2133MHz CL9 DDR3 memory. But Avexir, of course, are going to be releasing various different sizes and speeds, as well as eventually releasing DDR4 versions. So I've got the blue and white kit here that comes with a blue plasma tube. And whilst no other colour kits have been announced yet, I have heard that Avexir are working on both red and green plasma tubes, both of which sound pretty cool. And I should probably mention that the plasma tube is covered by Avexir's limited lifetime warranty and has a lifespan that's rated for about 6,000 to 8,000 hours, which is pretty impressive. But with the memory modules themselves, they're high-end in all the ways you'd expect. They use an 8-layer PCB, hand-picked DRAM chips, and XMP support for easy setup. And they also utilise a standard height PCB that stops about halfway up the DIMM, and then the entire top section has a PCB that's purely dedicated to the lighting. Therefore this memory is pretty tall, it's about 63mm tall, which when you get this memory up to other various size kits, you can really see just how much taller it is. It is also longer than your standard memory as well, which is just something to keep in mind in case of clearance issues, especially in mini ITX cases. But I really don't see anyone using this memory in little small builds like that. But yeah, so along the bottom we've got this machined aluminium heatsink, which as well as helping with heat dissipation, I think really adds something to how the memory looks. The top of the memory though is very plasticky to the point where it really doesn't feel great to hold at all, but I suppose at least you don't really buy memory to hold it. But something to note is that the top of the memory isn't symmetrical, meaning that in an X79 build or X99 when the DDR4 versions do come out, half of the DIMMs are going to be upside down, which I think looks just as nice, but it's something I thought I should mention. But I do think that the lighting just looks so nice, and as always I've done a really bad job to capture on camera just how nice it is in person, but it is really just so nice, and the lighting easily makes it the most unique looking memory that I've ever seen. And I know there'll be some of you who maybe think the memory looks a little gimmicky or a little bit tacky, and I do feel like it's got the potential to be like that if you use it in a rig with, say, loads of LED parts or kind of multicoloured parts or, just other equally showy parts, then yeah, the rig will look a bit like a Christmas tree. But I feel like in the right rig, and by that I mean one where, you've really thought about the rest of the rig and really planned it and kind of gone for more minimalistic and subtle parts to, downplay the rest of the rig, then I think the memory will just be this really nice, fancy centrepiece that just kind of makes the rig pop. Now, I'm a little bit like a cat when it comes to lighting, and therefore I had to touch them. It wasn't really in my control, it had to happen. And you'll be happy to know that they react exactly the same to, how you'd expect like a plasma tube or lamp to touch it when you touch it. I wouldn't really recommend sitting there putting memory, but because the memory does react differently to things being in close proximity to it, having 4 sticks next to each other has a much bigger lightening effect than if you just have 2 DIMMs with a gap between them. Now the first time that I fitted this memory, the initial thing that I noticed wasn't how pretty the lighting is, but how loud the memory is. It has like this high-pitched electrical buzzing noise, which, I really didn't expect because it's memory, but given the nature of the product, it's something that I should have expected. But here you can hear the sound of 4 standard low-profile DIMMs of memory. And then here you can hear the Raidens. So what I'd have to say to this is that in your kind of average gaming rig that's been built by your average gamer and therefore isn't necessarily the quietest that it could be, the memory probably won't be audible. But for me personally, now I try and make my rigs as quiet as physically possible. Like I spend ages on the fan curves and profiles, until I get it just right. I'll buy semi-passive or fully passive parts whenever possible if it will match the build that I'm making. And I often find that the loudest part in my rigs is the coil whine or like electrical noise. And this is louder than that, so this would be like the prominent noise that you hear from my rigs, which would just be a little bit silly if the loudest part of my builds is the memory. Also, as well as that, I just can't deal with high-pitched noises at all. Like, even if they're really subtle or quiet, I just look zoned in on them and find them really painful. So, for those 2 reasons, I could not use this memory in my own personal build. But I would still very happily use it in a show build. Which brings me on to my conclusion for the Raidens. I feel like these are the memory version of Mayhem's Aurora water cooling coolant, which is coolant that's been designed to be used in builds that can be shown in shows or, in videos or photos, but not for your personal rig that you're going to be using daily. And for me, the Raidens are just like that. I think they're brilliant for show builds, and I'm going to be using them a lot going forward in builds that are featured in videos. But I'm just not going to be using them in my own rig because the noise trade-off isn't one I'm willing to make. So therefore, I do have a hard time recommending them, and I think it's really up to you to decide if you're going to be able to hear them over the rest of your rig, and if you can, is it something you're willing to put up with? But yeah, that was just my quick look at the Avexir Raidens. If you liked the video, hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already and you want to see more videos. And thanks for watching.